Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in.
Happy Thursday, everybody. First up, the big development to cover is that multiple outlets are reporting that Beijing is debating a massive bailout of the housing sector, where local governments across the country would be pushed to buy millions of unsold homes. Over the weekend, Chinese financial media outlet Caixin reported that it had learned from multiple sources that, quote, policymakers have been studying the creation of a national real estate investment vehicle tasked with acquiring and revitalizing unfinished and inventory properties across regions, end quote. In a meeting in April, the powerful Politburo highlighted inventory issues, and in a rare statement it vowed to conduct, quote, coordinated research on policies for absorbing existing housing stock and optimizing new housing supply, end quote. During an investor presentation on the 5th of May, Morgan Stanley said that the Politburo's move showed the government was exploring ways to destock the property market, including trade-in programs to stimulate home sales and government purchases to convert unfinished buildings into affordable housing. US-based Bloomberg then reported yesterday that, quote, the State Council is seeking feedback from several provinces and government entities on the preliminary plan, while China has already experimented with several pilot programs to clear excess housing inventory with the help of state funding. The latest plan would be much larger in scale, end quote. Yes, it would. Plus, it would be incredibly expensive for local governments already dealing with significant fiscal strain. China-based Guotai Junan Securities estimates that a national investment vehicle would need between 9 to 30 trillion yuan, $4.16 trillion to acquire the 4.2 billion square meters of properties awaiting sale as of the end of 2023 within a time frame of 1.5 to 3 years. If these stories are accurate, then it would suggest Beijing is very worried. And it should be. By now we know the story. The housing crisis has dragged on for 3 years already. China's home sales plummeted about 47% in the first 4 months of this year, and unsold housing inventory is hovering at an 8-year high. According to eHouse China Research and Development Institution, the inventory absorption period for residential properties in China's top 100 cities was 25.3 months as of March. At this pace, it will take more than 2 years to clear the stock of new homes, significantly longer than the industry's historical range of 12 to 14 months. This is all exacerbating a meltdown that threatens to put about 5 million people at risk of unemployment or reduced incomes. Nomura Holdings Limited estimates that there are 20 million unfinished homes across the country. Buying millions of homes would represent one of the biggest bailouts in history, and it greatly excited markets too. The CSI 300 Real Estate Index, which tracks several mainland-listed major developers, jumped 5% after the reports leaked. What would local governments do with these houses? They could destroy some of them and use the land as a public space. Many regions have already experimented with government-led acquisitions to build reserves for subsidized housing, which would represent a wealth transfer to poorer households. Indeed, this week authorities in Hangzhou, the provincial capital of China's Zhejiang province, announced plans to buy homes and rent them out at affordable rates. The procurement process will run from the 15th of May through to the 24th. But the total floor area to be bought will be capped at 10,000 square meters, a tiny drop in the bucket. What Beijing is debating now would be many times vaster in scope. Liu Yuan, head of property research at Centerline Property, warns to, quote, if the properties can't find buyers and remain vacant after government purchase, the inventory issue is not truly solved, end quote. Analysts are now debating the implications of such a move, and many questions remain. Quote, this proposal sounds interesting, and reports may give hope that some sort of massive bailout to resolve the massive real estate overhang may be forthcoming. But I think there are some real challenges that need to be worked through. A critical issue is determining where the bailout funds would come from. How can local governments take on more debt to acquire properties? Additionally, accurately valuing these unsold homes is problematic. If homes are valued below market rates, this could depress real estate prices in surrounding areas, potentially destabilizing the market further. Another key consideration is the allocation of funds. Should the money go directly to developers, or should it be directed to contractors and workers who have been unpaid for extended periods? Furthermore, prioritizing creditors, paying banks first, followed by onshore debt holders and then offshore debt holders, complicates the process. It seems unlikely there will be enough money to make everyone whole. Implementing this bailout might require establishing a new bureaucratic mechanism to oversee and distribute the funds, ensuring transparency and preventing misuse." End quote. And of course, there is the question of moral hazard. If the sector is bailed out in the trillions of dollars, that moral hazard has not been dealt with, and thus the risk of this same crisis rearing its ugly head once again down the road remains. Next up, the dangerous flashpoint in the South China Sea between the Philippines and China continues to boil. But just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode, don't forget to hit the like button. Sharing and subscribing are also big helps. Earlier today, a Filipino civilian flotilla made a trip to Scarborough Shore under watch of the Philippine Coast Guard. The Filipino group organizing the flotilla of about 100 to 200 small fishing boats, led by 5 slightly bigger ones, said it wanted to assert the Philippines' claims over the shoal. The motley fleet set out on Wednesday morning, but in response, China deployed a formidable contingent of much bigger government-run ships to the area. By Tuesday, China had positioned 5 Coast Guard ships and 6 maritime militia vessels near the shoal, and had another 25 or so maritime militia vessels sitting roughly 60 miles further out. Rafaela David, one of the leaders of the Filipino organization coordinating the protest at sea, said the group would not be deterred from trying to reach the shoal. In the hours leading up to the flotilla trip, the PRC Foreign Ministry warned, quote, "If the Philippines abuses China's goodwill and infringes upon China's territorial sovereignty and jurisdiction, we will defend our rights and take countermeasures in accordance with the law. Relevant responsibilities and consequences shall be borne solely by the Philippines." End quote. State-run Global Times published a more threatening special editorial yesterday called "China's Goodwill and Patience Towards the Philippines Are Not Limitless," in which it expressed, quote, "Through this project, the US aims to increase its interference in the South China Sea situation, smear the law enforcement actions of the China Coast Guard, encourage relevant countries in the South China Sea region to adopt a tough stance against China, and undermine the peaceful situation that China and other regional countries have been striving to establish." Thus, although this organization deliberately downplays its political nature on its website, it is essentially a business deal between Filipino politicians and Washington. End quote. Then today, the convoy of boats carrying civilians bearing supplies for the fishermen said that it had abandoned plans to sail closer to the China-controlled shoal. A spokesman for the organization declared mission accomplished, telling reporters that an advanced team had already distributed fuel and other assistance to the Filipino fishermen a day earlier, about 46 kilometers from the disputed shoal. It is likely that the convoy concluded that with the presence of Chinese militia and Coast Guard, it was too dangerous to get much closer. Fortunately, there were no violent incidents between the two sides. Next up, and finally for today, Google has blocked Hong Kong users from accessing pro-democracy protest song "Glory to Hong Kong" on YouTube following a court order. "Glory to Hong Kong" was composed during the Hong Kong protests of 2019. It comprises 4 stanzas of lyrics in Cantonese and were later translated into English and other languages. The first stanza describes the suppression and degradation of fundamental human rights such as democracy, liberty and justice. The second stanza describes the anti-extradition law amendment bill movement. The third stanza describes the perseverance of Hong Kong people in darkness and despair. The final stanza includes the lines "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our times." Hong Kong-based Hong Kong Free Press writes today that last Wednesday a court banned people from broadcasting, performing, printing, publishing, selling, offering for sale, distributing, disseminating, displaying or reproducing the song with seditious intent. The Court of Appeal sided with the government, overturning last year's decision by a lower court rejecting the injunction that cited free speech concerns. A spokesperson for YouTube said in a statement, quote, "We are disappointed by the court's decision, but are complying with its removal order by blocking access to the listed videos for viewers in Hong Kong. We continue to consider our options for an appeal to promote access to information. End quote. Thus, the protest anthem cannot be viewed by Hong Kong users, but is still available to viewers outside of Hong Kong. It appears that the Hong Kong government and Beijing will continue to pressure YouTube to remove the videos of the song globally. Chu Ka-kin, a veteran current affairs commentator and Deputy Secretary General of the Hong Kong Association for Promotion of Peaceful Reunification of China, told state media yesterday, quote, "We understand that Glory to Hong Kong is a notorious protest song which symbolizes inciting rebellion, armed revolution, terrorism, and unrest, conveying messages of hatred, violence, and disobedience. This is clearly a threat to mankind. I also suggest YouTube consider banning the upload and display of the song in their platform globally." End quote. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Thursday, and I will see you all tomorrow.